大家好，我们今天非常高兴的邀请到了上北著名的拍卖师 Leon 来跟我们一起聊一聊一些关于拍卖的话题。Leon, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hey Leon, now it's been 6 months of 2023 gone, with more than 10 times of interest rate rises in the past year. What's your view towards the current auction performance in the upper North Shore market?
Tell you what, it's a year that's really, I want to say, caught us by surprise. We expected good activity to start the year, and it was probably a slow number of volume that came on the market. I feel that buyers were waiting for a big influx of stock at the start of the year, and it just never came. And I think the reaction then became, well, okay, we've got this to choose from. Let's get in. We still want to buy a home. So whilst we've had interest rate rises that have certainly had an effect, I think all things prevail is we still want to buy a home, and we're still ready to make a move. Life goes on is probably what I would say. We've seen really strong activity in the housing sector. We're starting to see some more competition around the apartments. That's probably been the bit that's been still a little bit soft. 3-bedroom apartments, I know, on the Upper North Shore, because they're so tightly held, they still continue to perform really well. But we're starting to see a lot more movement in that apartments. The fundamentals haven't changed, but quality homes will do really well. So good homes in good position will do really well no matter the market. Those that have challenges attached to them sometimes can struggle, but we're in a marketplace right now that's seeing good activity, and those sellers that respect the market will get a great outcome.
In the last few weeks, we felt, at the auctions, we felt auctions are going slower than we expected. So do you think auction is still the preferred method in selling your properties these days?
As an auctioneer, my answer is absolutely yes. I look at it from a point of, from an owner, to know that you've gotten the absolute most you can out of the marketplace is really important. There's no better way to do it than having competition at your auction. From a buyer's perspective, I would look at it going, well, if we miss out, at least we actually knew there were other people around, or you get the opportunity to secure it. The bit I love about auction is that the buyers and the sellers are there on the day to make a decision. That's what the auction is. When you take the theatrics out of it, it's 2 or 3 people that want to buy a home, and we've just got to sort out the price.
Now let's talk about some very common terminologies in auction. What is a reserve price?
So the reserve price is a price from our owners. It's typically set at the minimum level that they would accept. And as an auctioneer, my job is to obviously get as much as I can out of the marketplace. And from that number, it can be sold. So once we reach or breach our reserve price, it's at a level that our owners are comfortable to move forward, and we can sell the property from that level.
So that reserve price is usually set the day before the auction?
So in some occasions, it's a couple of days prior. In other circumstances, it can happen the day of the auction. It's a number that is kept secret by myself, kept very close to my chest. I can't disclose that number to anybody. I do get buyers that ask me what's the reserve price, and unfortunately I just cannot.
Top secret.
I cannot disclose what it is. Our owners will set their reserve typically based on the feedback they get from buyers. So if we're being really cagey as a buyer and not giving much feedback to our agents, and subsequently they pass that to the owners, if they're not getting that, it becomes hard to set a reserve price in line with the market.
So is it possible to sell under the reserve price at the auction?
So I can't sell it under the reserve, but what can happen is if we reach a level and the auction stops, our owners can reconsider their reserve, and they can adjust that to meet the market should they wish to do so. So for example, if we've got a reserve of say $3 million and we get to $2,850,000 and the auction stops, we can refer that bid to our sellers, let them know that this is where it stops, give them an array of options of what to do. And one of those is, are we comfortable to move forward? Let's adjust our reserve perhaps to that 2.85, and then we can let everybody know that it's selling.
What about vendor bid?
It's the vendor bid. The vendor bid is best described as a strategy bid for us. It's typically at a level where our owners won't consider, and we can use it in circumstances where we might start the auction with that at a level that the owners just won't consider anything below. It's also potential that we use it late in an auction to get us closer to a level where our owners would consider moving forward. All it does is a bit on behalf of our sellers that move us closer to the realms of where decisions get made.
Yep. But vendor bid sometimes will not be called at all.
Yeah, it's very exactly right. So if we're working through an auction very nicely, and if all the bidders are doing the bidding, I don't need to do anything with a vendor bid. Sometimes when buyers don't want to bid, then we utilise it.
Okay, Leon, so what should the buyers do after you quote a vendor bid?
My advice, if it's still at a level that as a buyer you're comfortable, my advice would be to bid above that vendor bid. It's to take it closer to where we need to be to make decisions. If it's still a level where our buyers are comfortable, understand that if we ever set a property aside or pass it in, we give our highest bidders the first right of refusal at our reserve price. You get the first courtesy at that reserve price. So you've got to be in front. If we pass it in at that level or set the property aside on a vendor bid, we'll go and talk to everybody. So I'd say be in front is always the best strategy to secure a home, especially if it's still at a level that you would consider as a buyer.
All right, you mentioned passed in. Can you explain that, please?
So we use a couple of terminologies. One is passed in, or the other that we might use if we'll set the property aside. All it means is we're not at a level that our owners will sell, and we're probably going to go into a post-auction negotiation scenario. Now, we may do that with our highest bidder. We may do that with all of the bidders. It just depends on the scenario. But all it means is we're not at a level that we can sell it, and we're going to continue to negotiate. So
usually we see two forms of auctions, in-room auctions or on-site auctions.
Yep.
What do you prefer?
I don't have a preference. So I think both of them have got really great benefits. And what I would say is whether it's on-site or in-room, to me, makes no difference to the result. The reason that we would try to run an auction, or some owners would really like an auction at 11 a.m. on a Saturday, it's because an agent probably wants as many spectators as possible, and 11 a.m. on a Saturday is probably going to get the most amount of prospective sellers there to have a look, and that can create a really great environment. From an in-room perspective, we will typically do them on, we can do them on a midweek evening at a convenient time, or even on Saturday afternoons. What we can do is, for a buyer, it means you can spend the chunk of your day looking at properties, knowing that the auction is in the afternoon. You're not having to pick between, do I go to this auction or that auction, or do I go to this open or that auction or that open? You can really structure your day a lot better. We can then have 4, 5, 6 properties going up. Now, if there's a couple that you're looking at and they're both on the same day in room, you don't have to choose. You're there at the same time. So my answer is I don't have a preference either way. They've both got great benefits, but fundamentally, there's no difference in the result. The results are the same whether we're on site or in room.
But for my preference, I actually prefer on-site auctions. So the reason being, I can see everyone's faces. I can see their reactions. Because whereas, if I do that in room, I'm usually behind the crowd. I can't see anything, and I can't tell who's the right buyers, who's the real buyers. But that's just my preference.
You can come stand next to me at the next in-room.
Okay, I'll try that. Here comes the most important question of the day. What are your advice to all the buyers out there at the auction? Should I wait or should I start early?
So my advice would be is to get into the action. The quickest way to really stop the momentum of an auction is to come in with a very, very strong bid. As an auctioneer, there's nothing I like more than an auction that starts a little bit lower and builds momentum really quick. Because I can roll off 50s back and forth as quick as you like. If somebody comes in with a very, very strong bid, I don't want to say I don't like it, because it's very nice, but it is the quickest way to put the brakes on an auction. I can tell you that our owners will be more negotiable with buyers that participate in their auction. They've gone to all of the effort of preparing their home for sale. They've gone through this and they've done this process to offer the buyers a transparent environment where they can compete for the home, knowing their competition. The last thing our owners want to see is everybody sit on their hands and do nothing. And what can happen is the owners get their back against the wall very, very quickly and hold very firm on their price. Those that compete don't want to say will earn favoritism, because they won't get favoritism, but they will be looked on in a different light to those that just sit and do nothing. So my view is come in with a plan, and whether that's to start really strong or whether that's to do what I like and start a little bit lower, let me build some momentum, have a plan, stick to it, know your budget and be prepared to go to it. It's about buying the home. It's not about trying to get the home cheap.
There you go. So Leon, for those potential sellers out there, what are your advice for them to sell in this current market?
I would have to say, if you're going to go down the road of auction, I think you really have to, you've got to commit to the process at the start. And for me, I can tell you in my experience, I have seen tens of thousands of dollars lost at the point of sale for trying to save a couple of $1,000s at the point of listing. To me, I think you've got to commit to the process from the start and give yourself an opportunity to get a great result. Now, auction is proven to give that benefit, but I think you need clear mindset, and especially if you can be clear with your buyers around we're committed to going to auction, I think it saves a lot of headaches around potential pre-auction negotiations that can sometimes get quite messy. So to me, it's commit to the process. Don't fear auction day. It's the day where you get to make a decision.
Trust professionals, right? Trust
Absolutely.
Trust your agents that run the process.